Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we're talking about instilling self-esteem in your kids. And before we went on the break, we were going through a list of tools, how to first be confident in yourself and then be able to instill it in your kids.
Yeah, so let's get back on to the list that I was talking about, that it's going to really take, you deciding that you need to develop self-confidence and self-assurance and self-esteem first within yourself before you can actually teach that to your kids. And I think it's a good idea to actually model that for them. Number 8 is going to be that you're going to have to invest some time, some money, and a commitment to your own emotional well-being. And that, has to be something that it just goes with any kind of learning, including school learning. When you go to school, you're investing time, money, and commitment. Are you not?
Yeah.
You're in school right now.
Yeah.
What's it costing you? What's the pay you got to put up?
Time, money, and commitment.
Right? And things don't just land on you and fall out of the sky. They takes a lot of effort. And I was telling that group the other night, I think I stopped counting how much money I've invested on myself and my interpersonal growth for the last 23 years, and I stopped counting probably at about $175,000 invested, time, money, all that stuff. And so, if you're going to go to college and you're going to learn, you're going to invest in your degree and your knowledge, you got to be putting some of that aside for your well-being, your interpersonal growth. And so I think that's important. Number 9 is bring a higher awareness to your limiting beliefs and your negative self-talk. So talk to me. I want you to tell me what a limiting belief is. What's your understanding about limiting belief, and what is negative self-talk?
To me, a limiting belief is something I made up about myself, usually about myself, that either isn't true or is getting in the way of me succeeding in a certain task that involves that. And then negative self-talk is just when I beat myself up for either messing up or not doing something because I thought I could do it better, anything that is putting myself down.
And one of the examples that I give on limiting beliefs, you've probably heard this example 1,000 times, but it's the little kid
named Johnny.
Well, I can give him different names, so we'll call her Cynthia this time.
Okay.
So Cynthia gets a gold star at school, and she's really excited to share that with her mom, and her teacher's praising her, and her mom's really proud of her. And then when she gets home, she wants to get home and share that with her dad. She wants to get that validation that she's special, and to have her dad be proud of her. So she goes from room to room looking for dad, and when she finally sees dad in his home office, she doesn't know that he's worried about bills and that he can't pay them and he's frustrated. In her little mind, she has no concept of that. She's just yearning for this approval. So she goes into the room and she kicks the door open, and all of her excitement, she holds up her gold star and goes, Dad, look what I got. And in that moment, her dad says, Cynthia, not right now. I'm busy. Now in that moment, what she heard, she didn't hear not right now. She didn't hear I'm busy. What she heard was, my dad doesn't care. My dad doesn't love me. I'm not important. And those became 3 self-limiting beliefs that she created about herself, her dad, the relationship with her dad, and probably the world. And so now those 3 self-limiting beliefs at age 5 or 6 years old now start to become bigger self-limiting beliefs and insecurities that you don't realize we have. And you don't realize them, you have them because they're transparent. And if you're unconscious and really not highly aware, you can't see them. It really takes a conscious effort. It takes, a committed effort, and sometimes even a coach or a mentor to kind of walk you through it and open up these possibilities for you to realize how many self-limiting beliefs you actually do have. Once you start to see them and you are aware of them, is the moment that you can change them. But you're not going to be able to change them if you can't see them. You can't change something you can't see. If you're oblivious to it, it's just part of your wiring. And so it's important to know what kind of self-limiting beliefs you have from your past and really be highly aware of them and the negative talk, because once you are aware of them, you can actually cause a shift in them. Number 10 is to practice surrendering all of your own judgments and then practice the art of gratitude. Now, when it comes to self-judgment, where do you rate yourself 0 to 10 when you're talking about judging yourself?
10 being I judge myself a lot.
Yeah, the worst. Like you're just hypercritical and.
Yeah, I'd probably give myself a 6 or a 7.
All right, and then what number would you give it for judging others?
I'd probably give it like a 5
All right,
or 6.
all right. So now, because you judge yourself and you judge others, you're doing it for a reason. You're getting what's called a payoff. You get to be right about it. You got all these different payoffs that you're getting. They're like, we'll call them goodies, interpersonal goodies. You'd have to be willing to surrender all of those goodies or payoffs that you're getting to be able to surrender all the judgments. And if you're not aware of that, no one teaches you that, you're doing this so unconsciously and you're so oblivious to it, you don't realize what's happening. And then by practicing the art of gratitude will help you surrender a lot of these judgments and really allow yourself to be grateful for all the things that you do see, even if even if yesterday you saw them and they weren't a positive thing, you can actually see negative things and still be grateful for them. You can still choose to see them as a gift. And that's it. That's the starting point for you to practice how to develop your own self-esteem, your own self-assurance, your own confidence. And if you practice that on a continuous basis, every day, all day long, all week long, all month long, something will happen to you. You'll start to show up different in the world. More importantly, you're going to start showing up different to your kids. Their kids are going to be watching you. In fact, your kids know you better than you know yourself because they're always observing you all day long, 24 hours a day. They know your habits. They know your weaknesses. They know your strengths. They watch you like a hawk. And so you have to really kind of walk the walk before you can talk the talk. And as you're walking it, it gives you a little credibility to be able to teach them and kind of inspire them and empower them and help build their self-esteem. So here's how you build self-esteem in your kids. And this is probably what most people are waiting for. Like, just get to it, Alex. Forget me. Teach me how to empower and inspire my kids to build up their confidence. Well, number one, I already talked about it. It's be the example. And you're going to have to model your own self-love process. And while you're in that process, you're going to be inspiring your kids. I guess I've never asked you this, but how does it feel knowing that the stuff that I'm inviting you to embark on in your own personal growth, in your own journey, does it feel good knowing that I'm in my own process, working my stuff out at the same time?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you weren't and you were asking me to do all these things, it's more of the do as I say, not as I do. And it's a lot more reassuring and it's a lot more inspiring to do these things and work on myself and have these breakthroughs if you're doing it too.
And so just so you know, what has helped me help build your confidence and facilitate your own process of self-esteem has really become a lot easier for me as I'm going through it first. Because what I'm realizing is I don't have to do as much. I just have to, be more of the role model and the example. And then there's a couple other distinctions I'm going to show a little later about specifics of why it's a little bit easier. And when I get there, I'm going to explain to you why. But number one is to be the example and to model my own self-love process. Number two is you got to be careful what you say. Words are important. Words have meaning. Words have value to people. You say one word and it's the wrong word and it could do some major damage. So you really have to learn about language, and you got to learn it's also an art form. What's funny is that a lot of my clients, they will email me or they'll call me up and say, hey, I just got this irate letter and I wrote a response. Will you do me a favor and overlook it and then clean it up, do your magic? And they send those to me because I can take an idea of what it is you want to say, and I can reword it in a way that has you show up really powerful, really confident, really assured, really loving and compassionate, just by tweaking a few words. And so I'm glad that they do that, because as I do that work for them on their emails and their responses, they're actually getting them back, reading them, and then they're learning how to do it for themselves. So it's like a learning curve. But you got to really be careful what you say to your kids and how you say it, and also the context, because there's a difference between, telling your kid, you know what, I'm really disappointed in you that you didn't clean your room. What do you think your son or daughter's hearing when they say that?
Well, they're hearing that they're not a good kid, that you're not proud of them.
Now, did I say that?
No.
That didn't come out of my mouth, right? What were the words that came out of my mouth?
Very disappointed in you.
Yeah, even though I'm being honest and sharing that sharing my disappointment, my 4-year-old or 7-year-old or 9-year-old, they don't understand that. So in their mind, because their mind isn't fully developed yet and they don't know how to make it about me, they don't know how to go, well, I'm sorry, Dad, but that's your disappointment. It ain't got nothing to do with me. They don't know how to think like that. So what they're hearing is, and what the story they're making up is, oh my God, I'm a disappointment. Oh my God, I'm not good enough. Or see, there I go. Nothing I can do is the right thing. And so you could really be causing the self-limiting beliefs that your kids are creating, that later on when they're 12, 13, 15 years old, when they're drinking, getting high, and they're really empty and lost, you could be co-creating these with your kids and not even be aware of it. So you really got to be careful with the words you use. And I'm not trying to say it to like scare you, but I really want you to be aware. And you need to be hyper aware of the words that you say are important. So don't just say words out of automatic pilot. Don't just be reactive and just throw your frustrations out and put words. Really take your time. And it's okay to say, you know what, son, let me think about this for a minute and we'll talk in about 20 minutes. And then take a walk outside and really gather your thoughts, and then come back in and then speak into whatever situation you got. I guarantee you, if you take a time out, whether it's 60 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes, you're going to articulate some powerful words that can be inspiring. But if you don't take that time, there's a higher chance that you're going to say some words that's going to be even more devastating, more critical in not having them really develop themselves in a powerful way. Number 3 is to create a safe, loving, and harmonious environment at home. And that means that kids, they don't need to see their parents arguing. And it's the number one thing that I really coach the parents that I work with is, if you got some issues, you need to go to your room, or go inside the bathroom in your room, or go to the garage, or take a walk. Hey, we're going to just go walk around the block. We'll be right back. Or stand out in the front yard and have your conversations. But when you're at home and, husband and wife or mom and dad are arguing, your kids know. Even if they don't hear you, the energy's powerful. All that anger and resentment and pain, all that is now floating around the air. And that's toxic. And if your kids are around that negative energy, now you're wondering why they're depressed and sad, because maybe your energy in the relationship and the disconnection you have with your husband or your wife isn't right on par.
Yeah, and when I hear you say this, I kind of get I got a different picture when you had said that, and I imagine parents that were very loving and accepting, where their kids can be whoever they want, because when they go to school, they get shut down.
That's
like,
right.
Oh, you're weird, or that's
right.
Boys don't wear pink or whatever. But if you let them grow up in this open environment, all of a sudden they don't care if boys don't wear pink when they go to school.
Right, because they're accepted at home, and that's good enough. Number 4, make eye contact with your kids. Your kids need to know that they're important. They need to know that they exist. They need to know that they're valuable, that they're significant in the world. And nothing says that more than eye contact. You can tell your kids 1,000 times how amazing they are. It doesn't equal up to one eye contact with a little smile or a wink, or just a solid, sincere 30-second or even 10-second eye contact with your kids. And then I know we're going to go to break, but I got this story. It's powerful when it comes to eye contact. So your kid is 4 years old or 3 years old, and for the first time, they want to tie their shoe. And they're like, no, I'll tie it. And you're like, no, come over here, let me tie it. And you're like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And you're like, okay, fine, go ahead and do it. And they struggle for about 5 minutes. And as soon as they get it and they tie their shoe, the first thing they do is look over to see if you're watching them. And if you're not there to watch them so that they can be seen and recognized in a moment of glory for them, you missed a huge opportunity to affirm your son or your daughter and how magnificent they are. That's what builds self-esteem. is being there to recognize those moments, being there to witness your kids when they're being great or when they're taking risks. And that's way more important than words, is the eye contact and the connection. And people, I think, underestimate how powerful eye contact is. Number 5, ask your kids open-ended questions so that you draw out their greatness. People think that, especially parents, think that I'm so afraid of my son or daughter not learning this, I gotta tell them what to do. I gotta remind them that, hey, this is the better decision, this is the better choice. Conscious parents realize at a certain point when they're 6 or 7 years old, I need to start asking open-ended questions like a coach. I gotta be more of the coaching parent, or I draw out the greatness. So if I ask you a question and you respond and you hear yourself say it, it becomes your truth. So if I ask you, do you know how amazing you are? And you say, yeah, I do. Thank you, Daddy. As you're saying that, you're hearing yourself say it. It's your truth. You own it. And then the last one is acknowledge them authentically when they inspire you, which would mean that you'd have to be really attentive and present and be observing and watching your kids really intently. And that's how you build self-esteem and self-confidence. And I know it's a rigorous commitment, but that's basically what it takes. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of icing on top of the cake. You have to learn how to be affectionate. You have to learn how to express your love so that they experience it. You'll be surprised how many parents, if I have them rate themselves 0 to 10 when it comes to being a loving and affectionate, everyone's rating themselves 9s and 10s. They're off the charts. But if I ask the kids to rate their parents, they're going to rate them 6s, 5s, and 6s. You might not necessarily be as loving and affectionate as you think you are.
And I think for parents too, a lot of them have that idea where they say, oh, well, I love differently, I'm not affectionate. You need to change that and become affectionate, because that's what your kids want.
That's right. They need it. It's necessary.
We'll be right back. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we talked about instilling self-esteem in your kids, and mostly we started off with talking about how to be confident in yourself and then instill it into your kids. And it was a really good show, so if you missed it or you want to hear it again, you can always find our podcast online. But I'm going to go ahead and go over a little recap of what I got out of it as the kid, and hopefully you guys can take this as parents into accountability that your kids might be feeling the same way too.
And I'm glad you're doing that, because I'm interested in knowing what kind of feedback and what were some of the takeaways, and just kind of spin it and give some different insight on it.
Yeah, so for me, I saw, we had just talked about this right before we went on the break, which was being affectionate towards your kids. And I think for me, I see a lot of my friends' parents, and sometimes even my parents, not being affectionate in the way that their kids want them to be. And sometimes it's as simple as a hug. I know I have many experiences where sometimes I just need a hug, and I don't know that you know that, but you just come up out of nowhere and you're like, oh, you need this hug right now. And it's kind of like, even if I don't quote unquote need it, why not give a free hug anyways? So it's you can't go wrong. So just do it anyways. And then another thing,
I don't think anyone's going to reject a hug from you. I actually have been a couple of times. I've been rejected from you a couple of times, but I don't take it personal, because I know what it's like to be stuck in your stuff that you just either want to either hide out, or it's kind of like, and it's funny because the millennials, they'll say weird stuff like "get away from me," and they don't mean it. They just what they mean is like, not right now. Like the last thing I need is a hug, and it's kind of like they just not taking it serious in that moment.
Yeah, I know. You always make fun of me and my sister because we always do the "stop, Dad," because you sometimes we're so frustrated and we're just like on a level 10 of stress, and you come over like a bear, like looking for some honey, like you just want a hug, and we're just so frustrated that we're just like, stop, not right now. And it has nothing to do with you,
because you're probably like, why aren't you taking me serious?
Yeah, because you're laughing as if what we're stressed about is silly, which even though it is, to us it's not silly at the time. So it's definitely worth it to just keep trying with your kids, because eventually they're gonna need it.
Yeah, you gotta win over your kids. You gotta steal their heart back. A lot of kids, 6, 7, well, I'm probably not that young, but 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, they're slowly starting to disconnect from you. They're slowly starting to want to, flap their own wings and find their own independence and figure out who they are. And so it's natural for them to pull away. It's natural for them to hide out in the room. It's natural for them to do all those things. You, can't take that personal. Realize that it's just a common thing. That's what teenagers do. Or that's what preteens do, and still figure out how to reinvent your relationship so you're still there. You're still checking in on them. You're still offering those free hugs and letting them know they're here. And I got 1,000 of them. They're unlimited and they're free. So whenever you need them, they're here.
Yeah, and one I just wanted to bring up real quick was the one like you had mentioned earlier, and we talked about was just the being in relationship and not fighting in front of your kids. Things like that are super, super important. And we will see you guys again next week. Thank you so much for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jasmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.